Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 48. Hey Junkie, welcome to another episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Jeff Kerkove loves to literally spend his day in a saddle. He has top results at some of the longest and hardest endurance mountain bike events in the USA. It never gets boring for Jeff. He just loves those varied, high alpine routes that push the limits of the mind, body, and equipment. Now, Jeff, thanks for taking the time to chat here today. Now, for those of us who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your sporting background?
Name is Jeff Kerkove, currently living in Colorado. My sporting background, well, at least as of right now, my focus is endurance mountain bike racing. So anything from basically the short side of the spectrum for what I do would be marathon distance. The longest side of my racing format would be anything multi-day, so 1, 2, 3 days of racing straight. And then everything in between from 100-mile races to stage races is pretty much where my focus lies nowadays with the competitive side of mountain biking.
But then, did you pick up cycling at a young age, or did you play other sports when you were a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town in the Midwest of the U.S., and cycling was always something that we did. It was just, it was how we got from point A to point B. It's how we got to a friend's house to go play football, or we got to a friend's house to play basketball. It was a mode of transportation, and it just got to the point where it's like, it was fun. We wanted to see where else, what else you could do with it. And then I believe the guys that I originally started riding with, we saw an ad in a newspaper for a race, I believe in Ames, Iowa. And we just went down and did it, and we were hooked. It was a cross-country race. We were hooked. And that basically was the launching platform for where I'm at now. And, for, I don't know, probably 5-6 years, I spent racing cross-country. And it seems like at the end of every cross-country race, I'd always have a little extra something left in the tank. So then it was just when the endurance side of the sport started picking up, at least with like 12-hour racing and 24-hour racing, back in probably 2002, that's when I decided, to give this a try. And the first time out, I was pretty successful at it, so I just kept plugging away at it, and that's eventually how I got to where I'm at now, and how I kind of keep aspiring to keep pushing the limit of longer bike races, and even how I got the nickname Mr. 24.
How did you figure out that you were any good at this and that you wanted to pursue it as a career or start racing at an elite level?
Yeah, I mean, cycling as a whole, I basically kind of fell into it. The cards basically aligned correctly. While I was going to college, I was, taking half the amount of credits that I should have been, just so I could focus on, also riding a bike, because that was important to me as well. Riding a bike and training on a bike and racing. And at the same time, I was also working at a bike shop. And at that time, and back then, this would have been probably, 2005, 2006. I mean, I had worked my way up to racing at the elite level. I definitely would not say that I was at the top of the elite level. It was more of like mid-pack finisher within these races. But it got to the point where social media started taking off, and it was helping to basically kind of pursue and to also grow my career. And it's working at the bike shop and doing the endurance racing is how I basically fell in line with Ergon, which is also my day job, doing marketing and customer service for them in the US. But when I came into contact with Ergon, they came to me basically saying like, hey, we're going to launch a brand in the United States. And you're familiar with the racing scene. You're familiar with the racing scene in the United States. And we want you to basically head up marketing customer service. And along with this, we'll let you race on Topeka Ergon in the U.S., and you can bring on, 3 or 4 riders that you feel would be a good fit for the brand as well. And that's basically where I'm at now. I mean, this has been going on now for 7 years, where I've been working for the same brand, racing on the same team, and basically help building the brands of not only the company I work for, but also the brands that partner up with the team.
Cool. So how do you manage to to combine both that day job with Ergon and then training and racing at an elite level?
Well, luckily, I mean, it's a lot of mixing work and pleasure. Work always comes first. So like, on a Monday or whatever, it's like if I want to go out and ride my bike for 4 hours, it's like I'll sit down first and plug through 4 hours of emails or 5 hours of emails before going out and riding. But the cool thing about my job is that a lot of times when I do go out and ride, is a lot of this I can then come back with content for my job. Like I could go out, do a ride, and take pictures of product, or go out with other athletes that are sponsored by Ergon or wherever it might be. And in terms, it's like I'll be able to get training in, but on the flip side of it, I can also do some content creation, marketing, social media content, whatever it might be, in order to help the brand.
Yeah. So if you just don't feel like doing any desk work, you just tell your boss, "Hey, I'm going out riding and take some pictures for the website."
Yeah, exactly. I figure I probably ride 6 days a week, and during the weekday when it's technically quote unquote working, I'll go out for no more than 2 hours. So I'll go out for over a lunch break, usually. But the weekends are what I fill up for. You go out and do the longer 5 to 7 hour rides or whatever it might be.
That's a cool way of combining it. Looking at your past results, and you've sort of touched on it yourself. You sort of got the nickname Mr. 24 there because you seem to have a knack for the endurance events. How did you end up doing these, and how did you train for them?
For the longest time I was just basically like self-guided, as with anybody that's new to a sport or anything. It's like you'll take advantage of the internet and search out ways to try to progress at any given task. I did this for a few years, and then when I moved out of the Midwest and then moved to Colorado, I hired Linda of LW Coaching, and she worked with me for 3 years and taught me a ton. And within those 3 years, it's like I took all that knowledge that she taught me through coaching, and then I'm now currently like kind of recycling it and using it to build my own plan for basically this year and even the last few years. So as far as as coaching and training and all that stuff, I'm rolling on my own. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like I have a pretty good read on my body, and it's like I know what events I want to do well at, so I can pretty much set myself up to do as best as I can without actually having a coach. Mm-hmm. So it's just nice to be able to have that freedom to kind of do what you want, but then also have something to fall back on to kind of make sure that you are being guided in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So, if I'm correct, I mean, you don't do all your training on a mountain bike,
No.
You do a lot of road biking as well.
Yeah. Like this time of the year, a lot of road bike stuff, just because, I mean, our trails right now are under, 5 feet of snow.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of road bike now, a lot of like indoor trainer miles, a lot of quality over quantity. And then we're very lucky at where my girlfriend and I live here in Colorado that we might be living in the snow right now, but if we go 3 hours down the road, we can get the desert in Moab. So we'll take 3-day trips to the desert to load up on miles and to load up on hours, and then come back to reality and recover and work, and then maybe go do it again the next weekend.
She rides as well?
She does ride as well. She rides for BH. Yep.
All right, cool. That's a nice way to spend the weekend. Do you do a lot of gym work as well?
I used to do a lot of gym work, and this was prior to being coached. But then once I became coached, I did a lot of basically everything since that time has been done at home. So just a lot of stuff using, lower weights, using like fitness balls and rubber bands and
just core stuff.
Core stuff, using your own body weight as resistance.
All right. So. How do you go about creating your training plan? Your year plan. I mean, how do you pick your races? Do you try to maintain like a certain level of fitness throughout the season, or do you really peak to one or two events?
Well, I try to set myself up to be as fit as I possibly can in July. As far as picking my events, it basically comes down to two things: quality of the course and am I going to have fun doing this race? For me personally, I could care less if there's a prize purse. Personally, I could care less if there's 20 people towing the start line or if there's 5,000 people towing the start line. For me, it's like if I can go out and have an awesome experience on a bike race, if I can feel good and if I can enjoy it, and in the end result, it benefits the people that are supporting me and I can get other people motivated to maybe go try this event, then it's high on my list.
Okay. What do you think is the hardest part about racing these, 12-hour, 24-hour races? Is it the physical aspect, or is it more the mental side that makes it so tough?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays it's a lot of it comes down to the mental side of it. It's like going into it, you kind of know what to expect, but then on the flip side, anybody that's ever done anything long, even like with triathlon, it's like that at hour 6 the wheels can fall off the bus, and it's like whether or not mentally you can keep your head in the game to keep pushing through it, and then hopefully get that second win, third win, fourth win, whatever it might be. It's always tricky. The physical side of it, I think I feel I've been doing it long enough now to have a good read on my body and to know what kind of shape and what I need to do to prepare. The flip side of it is always to keep remembering that, yes, it's at one given point or two given points or three given points during this, 8-hour day on the bike or 24-hour day on the bike, whatever it might be, there's going to be times where you're just going to want to throw the bike off a cliff and walk away and be like, I'm done with it. And everybody's been there, and I've been there many times last year, the year before, or whatever it might be, but it's how it is with anything that involves pushing the body.
How did you recover from these like longer races? I mean, I got a triathlon background and I did a couple of Ironmans, and you can do a 180k bike ride and feel more or less okay the next day, but it's that marathon during the Ironman that really kills you. How does it work for like endurance mountain bikers? If you do like a 12-hour race, can you do something else the next weekend?
I mean, everybody's different, obviously, with recovery and stuff like that. I usually try to do 2 events each month, basically from April to September. And that's going to range anything. Like nowadays, I haven't done a 12-hour race or a 24-hour race now for, gosh, it's probably been 4 or 5 years now. But like my longest time on the bike is usually, 125 miles. And anywhere, a max of maybe 14 hours on the bike. Usually after an event like that or an effort like that, it's kind of 2 weeks of laying low, where you'll take like maybe 3 days of not riding the bike at all. And then after that, you might be just doing short, half-hour rides, 45-minute rides, hour rides, whatever it is.
And that's just for physical recovery, or
that's just for physical recovery.
Okay.
As far as like the mental side of it, it's like if I go out and do something ridiculously hard and long, and I come out of it feeling good, and I feel like I had a good day on the bike, like I have a harder time mentally telling myself to just like settle down for a week and not do anything instead of being all fired up and going back out and trying to start riding again.
Because that's definitely counterproductive.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell us about the bikes. Is there a lot of difference between like the bikes that you use for these longer events compared to what the guys use at the more standard 2-hour cross country format?
I mean, as far as the equipment goes, I know like my teammates in Europe. I mean, they're basically using the same bike that a guy would tow the line at a World Cup cross country race. I tend to build my bikes up a little bit tougher and stronger. Like I won't cut edges on lightweight tires. I'll go for the products that tend to have a higher durability rate and reliability, just because it's, some of the events that I do, it's like you might be 5 hours from anybody, and it's like when you're that far away from anybody, it's like you need your product to work and to not have issues with. But as far as pure bicycles go, I mean, it's like right now we're riding 100 mil travel 29ers, which, full suspension 29ers, which is basically the ideal bike for anything that's long distance and you want an element of speed involved with it.
You guys have to carry your own equipment all through the race?
For the most part, most of the races here in the U.S., you are self-contained. So there's really necessarily no tech zones or anything. So it's like when I tow up for a marathon race or a 100-mile race, I will carry spare tube and, gas bombs or CO2 inflators, a small mini tool. It's all stuff that technically will fit into the, back pocket of a jersey. It's nothing too big.
Okay. About nutrition?
As far as nutrition goes, usually we get 1 or 2, feed zones per race. And what I'll do is I basically race from feed zone to feed zone. But I'll carry 3 or 4 goo packets in my jersey, and then have 2 water bottles or a water bottle on the frame, depending on length of the race and conditions.
Okay. What do you see as your biggest achievement in your career so far?
There's been a handful. One of the earlier things that I set out to do, which basically kind of set me on the path that I am now, was to try to qualify for 24-hour solo world championships, which I believe was in Canada one year. And I only had one. To qualify, you had to go and do a 24-hour race, which was like 2 weeks prior. And I showed up for that, having never done one or not knowing what to do, and was fortunate enough to place second, and then got to make that trip to Canada. So that's definitely a stepping stone, a highlight. Recently, one of the bigger achievements, there's a race here in Colorado called the Vapor Trail 125, which is a single 125-mile backcountry loop that starts at 10 p.m. at night, and it takes anywhere from 12 to 14 hours to finish. And a few years ago, I was very fortunate to have everything align and feel good, and was able to take the victory at that race.
So you ride all night?
You ride all night, so it's basically
cool.
14 hours nonstop. Yeah.
How do you do that with the lights and stuff? I mean, I can't imagine you can't go really fast if you don't see hardly anything.
Yeah, so most guys, including myself, are using like the standard headlamps that you would use for any 24-hour race, but you're running them at low power, at the lowest setting, so you're getting 9 to 10 hours of burn time out of a set of batteries. And the race is so long and the terrain is so technically demanding, and that no one's in a hurry. It's like, you're going to be out there for 14 hours, so it's like all that night riding, everybody's just working on getting through that section of night riding as smoothly as they possibly can without wasting a ton of energy or getting hurt or breaking apart on their bike.
That sounds like a cool event. Any disappointments over that career?
Probably the biggest disappointment as of recently was I recently threw my hat into the ring to try the bike pack racing. So you're basically self-contained for 4, 5, 6 days, however many, some similar to like the Great Divide race. But we have a race here in Colorado called the Colorado Trail Race, which is it's like 450 miles of all single track across through the high mountains of Colorado. But I've attempted this race 3 times, and I've yet to finish it. And there's always just various things that go wrong, whether it's mechanical or mental or physical. But the amount of time that it takes to prepare for an event like that is basically you're dedicating an entire season for it.
Okay.
So it's like when you train your body to go, 50% speed for 5 days, you really can't expect to do well in a 5-hour race or a 3-hour race or a 2-hour race, because your body's all about, pushing at an easier pace for days on end.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things where it's like you have to throw all your cards into one basket.
No.
if you're going to go that route.
Are you not going to attempt it again?
I will attempt it. I haven't done it now for I think 3 years, and I want to do it again. But it always comes down to scheduling around work events.
Yeah.
So if there's an expo or something I have to go to in August, and this race is always in August, and August is a big work month.
Yeah. So there's still a feeling of unfinished business there.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's as much as it is a race, it's the adventure side of it and the amount of fun that you have doing it. I mean, there's obviously a ton of suffering, but it's just you get to see things that you would never see unless you were in that given situation.
Yeah. So besides that one, what else do you have on your bucket list?
The other event I'd like to give a try would be the Iron Bike in Italy.
Because you do ride a lot in the U.S. You hardly ride outside the U.S., right?
Right. I get a few times. I've been fortunate enough to go to Costa Rica a few times to race, and I've been fortunate to go to Nepal. But there's, as any athlete can tell you, is that the financial side of it is always one of the biggest burdens. So, like with an event like Iron Bike in Italy, it's like the race itself isn't going to be the expense. It's always the travel to get there and so on.
Yeah. Tell us about Trans Iowa, because I think you are involved in organization there.
Yeah, I'm currently not involved in it anymore.
Oh, okay.
But I did have it was myself and Mark Stevenson.
Because I stumbled up on the website and it was pretty funny actually, to the way you described the race rules and everything.
Yeah, so myself and Mark Stevenson, we worked at the bike shop together before I joined Ergon. And we basically recreated an event that currently existed by the bike shop where they used to ride across the state on road bikes on pavement. And then we figured, well, how can we, make this harder? How can we take it up another notch? How can we do something that's completely different than what's already out there? And that's how Trans Iowa was spawned. The event's still going on. I think they're on like year 11 now. But basically, since I took the job with Ergon, I mean, that takes up 99% of my time. So I basically just kind of stepped away, and Mark Stevenson kind of has the reins on it now, and it's still kicking, and it is what it is. It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, how can people get in touch with you, Jeff?
The easiest way to get in touch with me would be obviously the website, jeffkerkove.net, and any social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's usually just Jeff Kerkove is the handle.
Yeah, all right, cool. Definitely make sure to put those in the show notes on the website. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors, and I think your team you have quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of supporters, and most of these are all involved. It's like I do race for Team Topeka Ergon here in the U.S. So I mean, our sponsors obviously are going to be Ergon and Topeka, and then bike sponsor Canyon. And we have SRAM Rock Shock, Primal Wear Clothing, Lamar Helmets, Continental Tires, Northwave Shoes, Crank Brothers, Goo Nutrition, Elevated Legs, Strava, Chemi Butter, No Tubes, and Jaguar.
All right. You sure you got them all?
I think we got them all.
All right, cool. All right. Anything else you want to plug?
Nothing else to plug, but yeah, thanks for looking me up and having the chance to talk.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's a nice introduction into endurance mountain biking. I'm really not familiar to it, and I contacted Sonia Looney as well.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, I think she's keen to come on the show as well, so she'll be up in the next couple of weeks.
Cool, very good.
All right, thanks very much for your time, Jeff. And
yes, thank you.
All the best for your 2015 season.
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care.